When I was serving, my wife texted, "Locks changed. Don't come." I replied, "As you wish." Hours later, her lawyer found out fast, screaming, "You have no legal rights to do that." The message arrived while sand was grinding between my teeth. I was sitting in the shadow of a cracked concrete wall, somewhere thousands of miles from home. Dust in the air, radio static humming in the background. War had a strange silence between moments of chaos. That's when my phone vibrated. A message. From my wife. Short. Cold. Locks changed. Don't come. No greeting. No explanation. Just 5 words. For a moment, I thought it was a joke. My thumb hovered over the screen. My pulse slowed instead of rising. Odd. You'd think anger would come first. But soldiers learn something quickly. Panic wastes oxygen. So I stared at the message. Read it again. And again. Locks changed. Don't come. I leaned back against the wall and exhaled slowly. The desert wind scraped across broken glass somewhere nearby. Funny. I had been shot at earlier that morning. Yet this felt more precise. More personal. Like a knife sliding between ribs. I typed 3 words. As you wish. Then I locked the phone and slid it into my pocket. No more messages came. Not that day. Not that night. But 48 hours later, her lawyer would be screaming down a phone line. "You have no legal right to do that." And I remember thinking something very simple. Actually, I do. People think betrayal explodes. It doesn't. It creeps. Quiet. Slow, like mold spreading behind walls. Looking back, the signs had been there. Small things, too small to fight about. My wife, Elena, had always hated paperwork. Bills. Contracts, mortgage statements. She'd shove them toward me with a sigh. "Your department," she'd say. But a few months before deployment, that changed. She started asking questions. Very specific ones. How does the house ownership work again? If someone's deployed, can they still sign documents? What happens if one spouse leaves? She asked casually, while scrolling her phone, while cooking, while barely looking at me. At the time, I answered automatically. Trust does that. It makes you lazy. Then came the nights she stayed up late texting. The way she angled her phone away from me. The sudden interest in changing passwords. Still, nothing concrete. Nothing worth accusing someone over. And accusing your wife of betrayal before shipping out to a combat zone? That's a kind of emotional suicide. So I said nothing. But my mind filed the details away. Soldiers survive by noticing patterns. Voice tone. Movement. Timing. And Elena had begun moving differently. Like someone preparing an exit. The final conversation before I left was strange. We stood in the kitchen. Suitcase by the door. She hugged me. But her arms were light. Careful, like she was hugging a stranger. "You'll be safe, right?" she asked. Her voice sounded rehearsed. "I always am." She nodded, then said something I didn't understand at the time. Good. Just that. Good. As if my survival mattered. For reasons unrelated to love. And now, months later, in the middle of a war zone, my phone vibrated. Locks changed. Don't come. No emotion. No explanation. No hesitation. The sentence of someone who believed she had already won. The funny thing about distance, it sharpens your mind. You stop reacting emotionally. You start calculating. That night I lay awake on a thin military cot. The message replaying in my head. Locks changed. Which meant she had expected me to return. Eventually. But she wanted the house secured before that happened. Why? Divorce would have been simpler. Legal. Clean. So why the theatrical message? Then it hit me. She believed something about the house had changed. Something legal. Something final. I opened my phone again. Scrolled through old documents. Years earlier, before deployment, we had updated the property title. Something about military benefits and tax advantages. At the time, the lawyer had insisted on a clause. One Elena barely listened to. She'd even laughed. Why would we ever need that? But I remembered. Every word. Because soldiers memorize details that might matter later. The house was legally tied to my military service. Ownership protection clauses. Occupancy rights. Emergency transfer restrictions. In simple terms, if I was deployed, no one could legally remove me from my primary residence. Not without my signed authorization, which I had never given. Meaning, changing the locks wasn't just petty. It was illegal. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part was this. Why would Elena risk doing something so stupid, unless she believed something else protected her? Something stronger. Something like a lawyer whispering confidence in her ear. I checked the message again. No insults, no anger, just cold finality. Don't come. That's when I started digging. Quietly. Phone records, bank statements, property alerts, military legal access portals. Hours of scrolling under dim flashlight glow. And slowly, a picture began forming. Lawyer consultations. Repeated. 3 months before deployment. Joint account withdrawals. Cash. Large amounts. And one detail that made me smile in the darkness. A document request, filed by Elena, to transfer house ownership during my deployment. Denied. Automatically. She had tried to take the house. Failed. And instead of waiting, she gambled. Changed the locks, hoping I'd stay overseas long enough for it to become reality. I closed my eyes and laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Elena had always rushed the ending. 48 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. A sharp voice fired through the speaker. This is Attorney Blake representing Mrs. Elena Carter. Calm. Professional. Annoyed. Your wife informs me you've been making illegal claims regarding property access. I said nothing. He continued. You are currently deployed and do not reside at the property. Therefore... I interrupted. Did she tell you about the military residency clause? Silence, a long one. Then papers shuffling. His tone shifted. What clause? There it was. The moment. The lawyer hadn't read the full contract. Elena probably told him a simplified version. People do that when they're hiding something. I spoke slowly. Section 14B, Active Deployment Residency Protection. More silence. Then louder paper flipping. Then a sharp inhale. His voice rose. That clause doesn't give you the right to... Yes, it does. Another pause. I could practically hear the man reading, understanding, calculating, and realizing his client had dragged him into a legal disaster. Then the shouting began. You have no legal rights to do that. His voice cracked through the speaker. Angry. Panicked. I leaned back against the wall. And smiled. Actually, my voice stayed soft. I do. Because 2 hours earlier, I had already spoken to military legal services. Already filed documentation. Already triggered enforcement. Which meant something very specific had just happened back home. Police had arrived. At my house. With paperwork. And instructions. Remove the illegal occupants. Immediately. I didn't see it. But later I received the report. And the video. Body cam footage. Front door. My house. Elena standing there. Confused. Angry. A man behind her. Not a surprise. Tall. Shirt half buttoned. Police officer speaking calmly. Ma'am, we've received legal confirmation the homeowner retains full residency. Rights during active deployment. Elena shaking her head. That's impossible. Officer continuing. You changed the locks unlawfully. Her voice rising. But it's my house. Then the officer says the line that ended everything. No, ma'am. Pause. It isn't. Silence. The man behind her slowly stepping away. Like someone realizing the floor beneath him had vanished. Then the officer explaining. The clause. The violation. The potential criminal charges. And finally, the order. You'll need to vacate the property. Elena's face went pale. 48 hours earlier she had sent a message. Don't come. Now the law had answered for me. The locks she changed had been removed. The doors reopened. My house restored. While she stood outside, watching strangers reclaim the life she tried to steal, I watched the video 3 times. Not out of anger. Just curiosity. Betrayal looks different when it collapses. Smaller. Pathetic. People expect revenge to feel powerful. It doesn't. It feels quiet. Like closing a book you've already finished. A week later, I filed for divorce. No drama. No phone calls. Just documents. Signatures. Finality. Elena sent messages. Dozens. Apologies. Excuses. Blame shifting. I didn't read most of them. Because the truth had already spoken. Not through shouting. Not through pain. But through patience. She thought she was removing me from my own life. Instead, she exposed herself. The man she moved in with disappeared the moment lawyers became involved. Funny how loyalty works. War teaches you something important. Enemies across the battlefield are honest. They aim directly at you. Betrayal at home pretends to love you while measuring the distance to your back. Months later, when I finally returned home, the house was exactly how I left it. Quiet. Still, empty. I stood in the doorway for a long time. Listening, not for her, for myself. For the man who had trusted too easily. He was gone, replaced by someone calmer, colder, someone who understood a simple truth. Some battles are fought with weapons, others with patience. And when the dust settles, the winner isn't the one who screams loudest. It's the one who never needed to raise his voice at all.